introduce the uh, second session today on the digital economy. I'd like to invite our panelists, Mohamed Ibrahim, National ICT and Digital Economy Office, Somalia. I'd like to invite Peter Fritz, Group Managing Director, TCG Group, Professor Ioana Chanmao, National University of Samoa. This session is dedicated to the digital economy. Given current mega trends, technology advancements, and the changing demand from consumers, citizens, there is a need for political and public service leaders to consider how they will influence, foster, regulate this emerging new economy. Mohamed brings yet another regional perspective from Africa and insights from the very dynamic digital economy growth happening with, and in many cases, without government support. Peter will speak as an investor and philanthropist who has been successful in guiding and mentoring many new tech businesses on their path to success. He might reflect on the external conditions that entrepreneurs are looking for when deciding to start business in a given country, as well as the considerations of an investor when providing finance to a new enterprise. Professor Ioana will shine a light on the human resource aspect of the digital economy and will provide a couple of examples of initiatives that she feels are positive, regional, examples of transformation which have been successful at building the right skills and enterprise for digital economy. So in terms of administration, I note that we are 35 minutes over time, and our panel is between us and lunch. So I would ask our panelists to speak concisely for no more than 10 minutes each. And we'll take one question each. So can we just make sure that when it comes to the question that we're all prepared. Thank you very much. I'd like to invite our first speaker, Mohamed Ibrahim.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank first of all the Samoan authorities for giving me the opportunity to be here. And I will try to concise and make my speech or talk very short. I'm from Somalia, East Africa, for those of you who are very far away from that part of the world. And in general, in Africa, we're doing a lot of exciting things, and I don't have to tell you more about that. You can all Google about that as well. Just to give you a quick example, if you look at your board, your ID, you will see the link to this conference itself. It's bit.ly, so bit.ly. That is actually from Libya, although now they're in challenging times, but nevertheless, it's just an example. But let me quickly go through what I really want to share with you, which is the financial inclusion, just as an example of what we're doing in Africa and specifically in Somalia, and whether this idea you keep hearing about mobile money, whether that will do, whether that was one area that can help with financial inclusion. Now, I will just talk about a little bit about the technology, just very short time, but also I will spend more time on the role of government and why there is a need for government in that sector. I had been in academia way back, and then I went back to government. I was running the telecommunication ministry in Somalia for a while. And only then I realized why governments are important and why we need government. Before that, I was in academia, and I used to say government should be small and they should have only a small footprint, and they should only keep the law and order and make sure the police are on the roads and so on. But now I believe the governments have more to do, and there's a need for government. So for those of you who are in government, I'm sure you're happy to hear that and why they're important and so on. But continuing with this financial inclusion, I guess what I really want to tell you very quickly is what we're doing about this in Somalia and why it's important and whether that's enough when we talk about financial inclusion. Now, my take on this is, yes, it's an exciting area. We're all happy with using mobile phones to exchange or send money to our friends and family members, especially if you're in the developed world or if you are a person, you have money and you want to help your folks back home. But there are challenges, and I don't think that's enough when we talk about financial inclusion. Financial inclusion is more than just sending money through mobile phones. And it's not necessarily really about national development, although a lot of you working in UN and government agencies are excited about this quoting statistics about how useful it is. But my take on this is there's a lot more work that needs to be done. And it's not really the beginning or the end of all when we talk about national development. Yes, ultimately it will be, and that's the way forward, but really we're not there yet. Now, just very quickly, what does it include when we talk about the financial services moving into mobile or technology-wise? A lot of things. And my interest in this case, while I'm here, I just want to share with you this. For example, if you look at the best example, M-Pesa, that people use in East Africa, especially in Kenya, we're all excited. It's a good product, but we always need to look at the full picture, the whole spectrum, not just the fact that I can send my 2 shillings from my wallet to another friend. But really, I should be thinking about what else can I do. So let me just elaborate that area. The excitement is all about sending money through mobile. That's all very good. We all like it. It's a way forward, and it should be. And ultimately, it will help. But where we are now, we are really just changing whatever small amount we have, my 10 shillings or 100 shillings to my friend. And as it moves around through the telcos and all the other institutions, it's getting less and less and less. But the interest should be really moving the next step. How do we save that money? How do we allow people to invest that money? Not just move it around. You can keep on moving around a few shillings here and there, or a few dollars here and there, but it will be still only a few dollars or a few shillings. The challenge is how do you increase that? How do you make it more so that it can help the national development and it can make other things? Now, that photo you see there, that's from Somalia. And even at that level, the technology has touched and it's helping. So that's good news. But that's not really where it should stop. We want to go beyond that, and we really need to think about a bit more. And I want to quickly move on. I'm sorry about this. The challenges we face in this area are the following. The technology part is easy. Any undergraduate student can probably write a small app and do fantastic things, whether even it's mobile money and so on. But when you're in the States or Europe or Australia, New Zealand, wherever you are, and you are a refugee or a migrant trying to help his or her mother or father in Somalia or Kenya, we face bigger challenges. And those challenges are the ones I really want to mention very quickly, and allow me to take a few more minutes here. What we are facing is something called de-risking. Some of you might not be aware of this. What that means is, while technology is doing good, while we're all happy about that part, where you have the situation, for example, in Australia, we have 4 banks. Those banks do what they call de-risking. What it really means is the government says, by no means, help you folks send money from this country, from the States or Europe, to your country. But the bank will say, no, I cannot do that because I have to de-risk. I don't like you particularly. That's really the frank language. What they're really saying is, I don't know where you're sending this money to. But on the other hand, I have the government that says, by no means, open a shop, get a license, and they will give you the license to do what they call remittance. I don't know whether you, I'm sure you know this idea. So while your government saying, yes, by no means will allow you legally to send money, the banks are saying, no, you cannot go through my system. So what do you do? In the States, for example, in Minnesota or in Australia, Sydney or Melbourne, people carry money, millions of dollars, in a bag and they fly on an international flight from Australia or the States through Dubai to Africa. Is that good? I don't think so. That's very dangerous. But there you have it. That's what governments do. Governments legislate. They will say, do this. The banks do something else if they want to. Why? Because it's a free country. We like it and we don't mind it. But we need some sanity. We need forums through this and academia where people think clearly. I'm not saying governments don't think clearly. Governments do the right thing, but they're too slow. We all know by the time you go through a parliament and you legislate and do all those things, it's months, if not years. But the private sector moves on. Life goes on and we do things faster. So how do we match these two? How do we say, look, government, talk to the private sector, do the right thing so the average citizen will not suffer? So this is really the idea I want to share with you, and hopefully we can talk about this and how do we put some logic into this. very quickly, I just want to mention a couple of other ideas. One of them is just through the discussions today. I always like coming to this kind of forum. You always learn a lot. And my friend from Estonia was telling me about what's happening in Estonia, but I just noticed he was using some slides, and one of them was about government documents where he was showing ID cards. And he said, that's not probably from the Pacific nor from Estonia, but I couldn't help but notice the photo on one of those ID cards, and I think that was probably from Africa. That was below the belt, and I'll accept that. But I will guarantee next time
Can
we
we
meet
wrap up,
again,
please? 1
probably
minute.
we will be doing a bit more about this. And I'm happy to stop here, but please, if you have questions, ask me on this. I'll allow the next question. Thank you.
Mr. Peter Fritz, please.
Look, I will give you only a personal view about life. I'm the oldest person in the room. I started in computing in 1960. So what we are looking at today is only a small slice in the history of computing. And digital to me, as I said, started in 1960. It is basically pushing bits and pieces around. So the digital economy for me is very simple. I'm a businessman, I want to do business. So if you're asking me, what does economy mean? It means me sending invoices. Very simple. And who do I send invoices to? Our clients. So if you're asking me why did I come here? It is basically so that a month or so, there may be one or two people that I can partner. And tomorrow at the workshop, hopefully we are going to identify a few projects which we can take forward. I am a realist. What has happened to me in the last few hours was extremely informative, but it was given by people who weren't talking on their own checkbook. Government sector, World Bank sector. If I ask any one of the speakers how much money they have put in to any of those projects, the answer is zero. So when you come to me, you are actually asking me to actually back something which I own completely different. So I'm going to stop here because I want to give you a chance to ask your questions. But Minister, I'm here to be delivered with something. Our record is 47 years. We are the oldest Australian-owned IT company. I don't need to be told about the history of computing or digital economy. I live with it. All the people you read about are either my friends or my acquaintances. I talk to them. Give me a chance to do business.
Thank you very much for your, I suppose, very direct words there, because I think we've got the gist of what you're here to do. Following on, we have Professor Ioana Chan Mao, and I go back to one of our earliest speakers, Paul Shetler, when he was talking about the example in Australia about creating this digital economy, but not necessarily having the skills. And then you get the skills, but you don't actually have the project. So one of the areas that Professor Ioana has been dealing with at NUS is how to, I suppose, equip Samoa for where we want to move for the next 5, 10, 15 years of time.
Good morning. Today, as you've heard, my task is to talk about the HR aspects of the digital economy. And the panel today, I focused my comments on two things. One, the digital skills needed for citizens to take part in the digital economy. And two, the effects of the digital economy on job creation and employment. And that's just an overview. As we all know, today's job markets and in-demand skills are vastly different than one of 10 or even 5 years ago. And the pace of change is only set to accelerate. 65% of children entering primary school today will ultimately end up working in completely new job types by 2026. In short, digital technology is disruptive and transformative. This poses an increasing need for identifying the forecasting skills relevant not just for today, but will remain or become so in the future to the demands of the digital economy. The increasing use of ICTs at work is raising the demand for many skills along three lines. ICT specialist skills, IT generic skills, and ICT complementary skills to perform new tasks associated to the use of ICTs at work. There are some points to note from an OECD report on skills development for the digital economy. According to the report, the demand for ICT-related skills increased in a large majority between 2011 and 2014. Now, due to disruptions and transformations, there are skill mismatches may therefore emerge not just between the supply and demand of existing skills today, but also between today's skill base and future skill requirements. The report also notes the demand for ICT specialists has been growing faster over the last few years. The report also noted the following. Now that the future of ICTs is also changing the way that work is carried out, raising the demand for ICT complementary skills. A major finding is that changes in tasks associated with the increasing use of ICTs tend to be larger for people in low-skill occupations than those in middle and high-skill occupations. And on average, intensive use of ICT at work is associated with tasks that require more interaction with co-workers and clients, more problem solving, as well as less physical work. Now, benefit of the digital economy and employment, as mentioned earlier, in many industries and countries, the most in-demand occupations or specialties did not exist 3 or 5 years ago, and the pace is accelerating. In fact, the main effect of the digital economy on employment has been related of job creation, job displacement, heightened labor productivity, and widening skill gaps. According to the OECD, World Bank, and the World Economic Forum report, the digital economy creates new employment opportunities in different industries and in newly created markets. At the same time, there is growing concern that the successive waves of investments in digital technology have contributed to job losses, wage stagnation, and rising wage inequality. However, after a period of disruption, market economies have typically been able to continue to generate enough jobs for the workforce. So what is the current status of digital skills in the Pacific? Well, in terms of digital skills, higher education institutions have played a significant role in building the ICT capacity to support the digital economy. Computer science curriculum offered in the main universities across the Pacific, such as USP, Newport well as in technical qualities and productivity. Computer literacy, computer applications also taught by a few secondary schools, but there is no formal curriculum requirement. There are also ISCO and district certifications offered at MS, PhD, and other private providers. And according to World Bank reports, countries such as Fiji, Samoa, and Tonga, although they have a small labor pool and highly educated, comparatively computer literate. However, as we all know here in Zambia, we have a long way to go, especially in building the expert skills. As to the status of jobs in the city, well, in a nutshell, there is still a huge gap. According to the World Bank ICT job study, an estimated 23% of potential youth labor force is unemployed. And this only reflects the formal sector and not the casual workday activities. Hence, the need to harness the job creation potential of the digital economy is even more critical as we achieve that they need to have the right skills. However, according to the study, there are three competitive advantages which make leveraging job creation in the digital economy in the Pacific promising. These are the availability of a small labor pool, young and qualified, minimum wage costs, which are comparable to the international norm for basic outsourcing tasks, the availability of basic internet infrastructure that is improving in terms of speed, quality, and cost, owing to new connected solutions, the availability of at least one international micropayment mechanism, which having a high level of political support for ICT initiatives, basic investment incentives, which are in place, higher ranking in ease of doing business when leading global outsourcing services players such as India and the Philippines, the emergence of local global outsourcing services, and the ability to offer unique nearshoring services to the likes of Australia and New Zealand. To some regional examples of implementation, first we have Fiji, which is the only country in the Pacific with industry experience in the area of global outsourcing services. Fiji already holds APA Pacific operations and also Mindful, which are both business process outsourcing operations in their Japanese country. In job creation, the mobile market has created numerous jobs in the mobile infrastructure, but also in mobile services. So in 2014, the mobile ecosystem directly and indirectly provided employment to over 25,000, with the figure projected to increase about 35,000 by 2020.
One more minute to wrap up, please, Professor.
Okay. A local example is the Marketing Online trading portal. By Mohamed is an online client base of 44,000. It is transforming the way all retailers do business, providing extensive clientele for their products using online services. I finished with some recommendations from the evaluation of the current context and of the recent reports. I'd like to make the following recommendations. One, the global outsourcing services industry appears to have significant job creation potential in Fiji, Samoa, and Tonga. Two, to build digital skills, there is a need to invest heavily in STEM, computer science, problem solving, and critical thinking. Three, appropriate labor, while policies are important, appropriate labor market regulations, effective competition policies need to be in place. Existing labor market programs, traditional employment models have to evolve and adapt to ensure skills development, lead to growth and job quality, individual implementation, Lastly, I would like to finish up by saying that any of the imported models that will be considered within the context of Pacific should be considered within the context of our culture, our people, the economy, our environment, in short, the information ecology flow. And I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor. We will take one question from Mohamed. Do we have anyone who would like to ask a question? Fine. You don't have to ask a question if you don't have a question. There you go. Can we get a mic over here, please?
So the topic that you have mentioned is quite challenging and worldwide, and maybe one question towards the next steps, what need to be done? Do you think we need to invest more into the technology, how we actually do that kind of payments and money transfer, or is it more a problem of politics and policy and regulation, or is it kind of both? And if it both, what would be the next step to go?
I'm not sure if I heard the whole question, but I think you're referring to the policies.
This was a question whether it's more a technology problem or more a policy problem, or both, and what would be the next steps to go?
I think technology itself is not a problem. The thing is, as I said, that's probably the easy part, and we'll probably all agree on that part. But where the problem is when anything that governments get involved, the speed is always slower. But the private sector and the technology sector moves faster. So what we have is a case where everyone is happy with the way the technology is working, but there are no really solid laws that protect the citizen. I will just give one example. In the case I spoke about the mobile money, yes, mobile money is useful. The farmer, the poor guy, everyone is getting their money on time and they can trade, and that will help the national economy. But where the problem is when something goes wrong. I spent a lot of my life in technology. Everything is cool when everything is working. But when things fail, that's where the difference between professionals and amateurs come about. Now the issue is, what do you do if the poor guy who sent his 10 shillings or $10 through mobile money cannot be received by the other end? Where are the laws and who protects him or protects her? I think that's where the challenge is. Now, just very quickly, while I was in Australia way back, I actually had a chance to meet the current Prime Minister. And we talked about something along these lines with the telcos back home. When he was the Minister of Communication, he was probably wiser. Now he's a Prime Minister. I wrote to him again, exactly on the same issue about the risking problem we're facing in Australia. He's probably now too busy with politics, and the answer that came back wasn't convincing. So yes, the technology is good, but how do we get governments to work faster and legislate and protect those who rely on this technology? I'm happy, I'm sure probably you follow the news with CPA, for example, paying 700 million or whatever. That particular case is related to the same issue with Austrac. And here was a clear case where we spoke about, wrote about, and said, look, this area is a bit fluid. We really need to do a bit more work, but it didn't happen. Why? The government is still busy in parliaments, talking, legislating, whatever, while life goes on. I will talk to you about this offline. I've said more about this on the record. If you Google, you will find it. More interestingly, the off the record is even better if you can get access to it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mohamed. I think if we, I suppose, find a parallel with some comments from Hannes and Paul as well, is that clearly a lot of this digital transformation and digital economy has to be sponsored by government. So I suppose the takeaway from this is that there has to be a unique partnership whereby the private sector and government leads the narrative, that it's not just, we turn up to a conference and we speak it, we actually live it and work it and move forward together. So thank you for your very sensible comments. Can I take a question on the floor for Mr. Fritz? He's fine. Any takers? Any businesses need good seed capital and got a good pitch? Honorable Minister.
Mr. Fritz, this is not a question, but I would like to invite you for lunch. Thank you.
Thank you.
One question is not enough for a decorated person like Mr. Fritz. So, lunchtime, please spare for me.
Okay, can I take a question for Professor Chan Mao, please, before we wrap up?
If there's no everybody else, I'll take a question for you. What do you have planned for the National University of Samoa in terms of the next cutting edge skills that you'd like to educate your students on? What are the topics that you want to include in your curriculum next?
Thank you. One of the things right now, I'm talking about the computing curriculum. We have the major that we have is computing, like a hybrid information systems and programming. We would like to take it to computer science, to have a true computer science major. We also would like, I think what we need to also focus on, we have statistics. We'd like to make sure that we have the problem solving, critical thinking. These are the things that we need to think about. Because now we're looking at a curriculum, we're focusing on, computer literacy, but it looks as if with the way the technology is moving, that the emphasis really should be, because of the rapid changes in technology, we really should be looking at skill, critical thinking, problem solving, and computational. And so we are looking at changing the curriculum to encourage more of the problem solving. We are also, because we do have these industry needs analysis surveys we carry out, and one of the things that we've been told is currently we need to improve the programming skills of the students. We need also to diversify the skills, not just offer just information systems and programming, but also the things like graphic design, networks and hardware. We have a Cisco Academy, but now we also have a major in applied computing. So in the area of computing, this is where we are at the moment. We are struggling, to be honest, to try and to create and make the curriculum as relevant as possible and to keep up with the changes. But again, I suppose we are like any other tertiary provider, trying to anticipate the changes and trying to accommodate. I hope that answers your question.
Sure. I think that brings this panel to an end. I also recognize that we were the only panel that's come within our 45 minutes, actually 40 minutes, so we've met our KPI. I thank our distinguished panelists for their insights. I also invite you to engage with them during the lunch sessions and further opportunities to find ways how we can collaborate. In ending, we invite you all to lunch on behalf of Honorable Minister and Governor Samoa and UN. And just remember, because you're in Samoa, do a digital prayer before you eat. Paftai.
Let's give a hand to our facilitator and our panelists for this wonderful session. May I now invite our team to please present some token of appreciations to all our panel members and to our facilitator. And please come forward. Just have a group photo. please smile to the camera while we still have some announcements to make. Our lunch will be shortened by 30 minutes, if that's okay with all of you, because we have some great activities coming before this we close for today. So it is now 1 o'clock. So everybody, you're all invited back at 1:30. So please, our lunch is served downstairs, at the ground floor of this building. So please enjoy the lunch. We also urge some dear participants who needs to claim their DSA. Please make your way outside or where the registration area is, inside that room. Our bankers are waiting, and you might not be able to claim it today if you missed that. So please make your way on that side to claim your DSA. Also, announcement, 5 o'clock sharp, we will have transport prepared for those who have received invitations to our function. It's going to be a 20 to 30 minutes drive, but thanks to the Ministry of Police, our escort, the police will escort all the motorcade. So whoever wants to join from our local participants, you can join that motorcade. It will leave straight after outside of this building from 5 p.m. to our function venue. With that, let's give a hand for our first half of this morning. And we'll see you back at 1:30 sharp half time.
What is blockchain ID? Let's start by looking at what